The police investigate the crime. We clean up what's left behind. Welcome back to Cleaning Up the Crime. If you've watched me for a while, you've probably already noticed the room. Yeah, it's empty. No masks, no horror posters, no creepy dolls staring over my shoulder, and no fake skulls. I didn't move them somewhere else. I got rid of them. All of them. 20 years ago, you couldn't have paid me to do that. I loved horror. The bloodier, darker, and more disturbing, the better. But after spending most of my life cleaning up what real people do to one another, fictional monsters stopped being scary. Humans have always considered ourselves the dominant species on this planet. We build cities, cross oceans, cure diseases, and create machines capable of leaving our own atmosphere. Every generation congratulates itself for being more advanced than the one before it. And yet, for all that advancement, we continue finding new ways to destroy one another. Sometimes I wonder how far humanity could have advanced if we didn't spend so much time killing ourselves. I've spent 20 years walking into rooms after terrible things happened. I've cleaned bedrooms, bathrooms, hotels, churches, cars, warehouses, mansions, and apartments where 6 people shared 2 bedrooms. I've cleaned after murders, suicides, domestic violence, unattended deaths, and things I still won't discuss publicly. Different people, cultures, religions, incomes, and explanations, even though the rooms started looking the same. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Moriah Jordan, and before cleaning up the crime, and before my RestorePoint Bio-Recovery business, and long before I moved to Iceland trying to get away from all of this, I was just a weird 16-year-old girl from Los Angeles who liked scary movies a little too much. My mother owned a cleaning company, but she wasn't the woman you called because you needed somebody to vacuum the living room before the company came over. Mom took the jobs other cleaners didn't want. She specialized in severe hoarding. Sometimes we'd walk into houses where you couldn't see the floor, newspapers stacked to the ceiling, rotten food underneath clothes, dead insects inside cabinets, animal waste buried underneath years of belongings. You could open a refrigerator and immediately wish you hadn't. Mom never judged the person living there. She would put on her gloves, look around, and say, "Somebody lives here, so we're going to make it livable again." I started helping her when I was 16. Technically, I was supposed to carry bags, organize supplies, and stay away from anything dangerous. But I was fascinated by everything. I wanted to know how someone could sleep beside a mountain of garbage and stop smelling it. How could somebody know there were hundreds of insects in the kitchen and still make breakfast? How could a person look at something everyone else considered unbearable and eventually see it as normal? Mom would catch me staring and tell me, "Moriah, stop observing and start cleaning." What fascinated me wasn't the filth, it was the mind behind it. I started understanding very young that human beings can adapt to almost anything. Live around something long enough, and the unbearable becomes tolerable. Give it more time, and tolerable becomes normal. I didn't realize it then, but that lesson would follow me for the rest of my life. When I was 19, I decided hoarding wasn't enough for me. 2 employees from my mother's company agreed to come with me, and I started taking bio-recovery jobs. That's eventually what became RestorePoint Bio-Recovery. 2 years later, I thought I had the strongest stomach in Los Angeles. Blood didn't scare me. Decomposition didn't scare me, and smells didn't scare me. I had spent 3 years crawling through houses that could make grown men turn around at the front door. I figured, how different could crime scene cleanup really be? But I would see that it was very different. Police officers investigate. Detectives collect evidence. Medical examiners remove the dead. Eventually, all of them leave. Sometimes the family is left standing there looking at a room nobody warned them they'd have to deal with. That's when people like me arrive. We don't solve the crime, don't determine guilt, don't get dramatic confessions, but we clean what remains after everybody whose job was to understand what happened has gone home. My first few crime scenes stayed with me. I remembered photographs on refrigerators, shoes beside beds, half-used bottles of shampoo, laundry sitting in dryers, grocery lists, birthday cards, things that reminded me that whatever happened in that room interrupted somebody's completely ordinary life. I would go home thinking about the victim. Sometimes I'd think about their families. Sometimes I'd wonder what happened during the final minutes before we were called. Then I got better at my job. People hear that and think I mean I learned better cleaning techniques. I did. But something else happened too. I learned how not to carry every room home with me. You have to. You can't spend your entire night wondering about every photograph you removed from a wall. You can't cry over every child's toy you disinfect. And you can't imagine every argument that happened before every violent act. If you do, this profession will eat you alive. So I learned detachment, not from human emotions. If anything, I understood human emotions better than I ever had before. I became detached from the belief that certain emotions belonged only to certain kinds of people. Rage wasn't something only violent people felt. Jealousy wasn't reserved for killers. Resentment wasn't abnormal. Hatred wasn't rare. Obsession wasn't something invented for movies. I had felt some of those things myself. Everybody has. The difference was what someone decided to do with them. By 2012, RestorePoint had grown beyond anything 19-year-old me could have imagined. We expanded outside Los Angeles and eventually had operations in New Jersey, Ohio, Vermont, and Texas. I wasn't personally cleaning every scene anymore, but I still went out. I wanted my employees to know I would never ask them to walk into a room I wouldn't enter myself. And those rooms taught me things. I saw violence caused by infidelity. People who claimed they loved each other until jealousy became more important than love. I saw families destroy one another over money. I saw people die alone from illnesses and remain undiscovered because nobody thought to check on them. I saw the aftermath of psychological crises, and I saw crimes committed for revenge, control, embarrassment, greed, fear, and sometimes reasons so insignificant that hearing them made the aftermath worse. There was always a reason. That's something people love asking me. Why did they do it? We need the why. But the why just leads to more questions, doesn't it? Money, adultery, drugs, religion, mental illness, revenge, childhood trauma, jealousy, desperation, power, or control. That was half of the story with some cases. But sometimes those explanations mattered only in understanding why something happened, but why we can't prevent it from happening again is the deeper question. What people want to really know is, were people born evil? And are normal people one breaking point away from killing one another? I don't know the psychology on any of that, but I think the why is more complex than what I can give on why a person takes someone's life or their life, or even isolates themselves that no one checks on them. But what I did in 2015 would change how I really looked at people. In 2015, I made what was either the smartest or worst business decision of my life. I started the YouTube channel, Cleaning Up the Crime. At first, the channel was educational. I showed people what bio-recovery actually involved without exposing victims or identifying families. I explained protective equipment, contamination, odor removal, restoration, and what happens to a home after the yellow tape comes down. I had my horror posters behind me, my masks, my creepy dolls, and my skulls. I was the macabre crime scene cleaner from Los Angeles who could discuss decomposition and then recommend a horror movie before signing off. People loved it. Then I learned something else about people. They didn't just want to know how we cleaned. They wanted details. How much blood was there? What was the worst murder you've ever cleaned? Did you see the body? Do you have pictures? What's the most disgusting thing you've ever found? Some people were genuinely curious about my profession. Others wanted to get as close to somebody else's worst day as possible without having to smell it. and I monetized that curiosity. That's something I have to admit, because this story doesn't work if I pretend I'm standing outside humanity judging everybody else. I made money. My company grew, my channel grew, and I knew which thumbnails performed better, which titles got clicks, and what video involving murder would outperform one about an unattended natural death. I never showed victims. I never intentionally disrespected families. I had rules. But I was still making money talking about death. Maybe that should have bothered me more than it did. By 2022, I was tired. Not tired enough for a vacation, but just from people that wanted more and more details about death and dying, and not the care we put into the work. Also, maybe I was burned out. I hadn't come to the realization, but a phone call with a team member that had a house in Texas where the whole family died from carbon monoxide poisoning started to change that. The most seasoned people couldn't clean it because the family was just sitting at the table having dinner, and then they slowly died. Or to have an LA mansion where a celebrity that was well known and they loved others, but everything in their house had no personality. Those were the stories that got to me. When we died, did anyone care? Or are we just evil people that continue to want to know more intimate details about a person's life without truly getting to know the person overall? So, to give myself a break and clear my mind, I thought it was best to leave Los Angeles. I chose Iceland because I wanted quiet. I wanted somewhere with a reputation for safety. Somewhere I could still work without constantly seeing the worst thing one human being could do to another. My company, RestorePoint, could continue operating in the United States without me physically being there. I could handle ordinary bio-recovery work, occasional unattended deaths, hoarding, accidents, restoration. I thought maybe I could finally separate my life from violence. For a while, I did. Then the calls started changing. One violent scene became another, then another. Different circumstances and explanations. Nothing like the volume I'd experienced in America, but enough to destroy the fantasy I'd created for myself. I had crossed an ocean searching for somewhere human darkness couldn't reach. I eventually realized how stupid that was. Iceland wasn't the problem, nor Los Angeles, or Texas, or anywhere really. I had finally realized that I had spent years changing cities while cleaning the same emotions from different floors. I started looking around my studio differently after that. There was a demon behind my chair, a masked slasher beside the bookshelf, a ghost on the wall, and monsters everywhere. And that is when all of my horror memorabilia started to look ridiculous. I have always known what real evil was. It was always humans. I think we created horror movies and creatures with horns because horns tell us what to fear. We gave evil black eyes, sharp teeth, claws, masks, supernatural powers, and voices from hell because then we could recognize it. We could point at the screen and say, "That's the monster." But real evil doesn't always introduce itself. Sometimes it goes to work, makes dinner for their family. It kisses its children goodnight, it sits beside you in church, and it says, "I love you," and mean it. That's what finally scared me. Not that monsters might be real, but that they don't have to be. So I sit in this empty studio and realized 16-year-old Moriah had spent her life fascinated by imaginary darkness, while 36-year-old Moriah has spent 20 years wiping real darkness from walls. I've watched strangers help grieving families, watched employees stay hours beyond their shifts because someone needed them, and seen compassion in some of the worst rooms imaginable. That's what makes this complicated. People are capable of extraordinary kindness and of extraordinary cruelty. Maybe the terrifying part is that both possibilities live inside the same species, inside the same communities, sometimes inside the same person. Maybe we invented monsters because accepting that is harder. So if this is your first time watching Cleaning Up the Crime, I'm sorry. Usually I'm a lot more fun than this. But if you've been here since the beginning, maybe now you understand why the monsters are gone. I've spent 20 years searching crime scenes for evidence of evil, and now I know I was looking in the wrong place. We have always been and always will be the evil ones, and we are all capable of the real evil inside us.